much less death and destruction we would have had. Even if you took just the past 10 years, our national debt has been pushed up $4 trillion because of all the wars going on in the Middle East. And what are the politicians talking about today? Democrats and Republicans. They're overly anxious to start the next one, going into Syria and going to Iran. I say, no more wars. Get out of the wars and come home. It's a moral issue, it's a constitutional issue, but you know, it's also an economic issue because great empires, great nations always seem to overextend themselves. Fortunately, we didn't have to have a nuclear exchange with the Soviets. They went broke before we did, and they had to go home and their system fell apart. I was in the military in the 1960s for 5 years. I was drafted during the Cuban crisis. And believe me, if we can stand up to the Soviets who had 30,000 nuclear weapons, don't you think we could stand up and not be intimidated and act so frightened by a country that has no nuclear weapons and maybe we'll never get a nuclear weapons and we want to go to war against a country like that? It makes no sense at all. Of this country were very definite on how we should deal with other nations. We should be friends and trade with all nations, willing to be friends and willing to trade, and we would be less likely to fight with them. A good suggestion would be the Cold War is over. Why don't we talk and trade with Cuba? Other countries are doing it. We're doing it with China now, and they've sort of wised up of the whole thing. We're in debt. We owe it to China. China saves their money. We're over there wasting lives and wasting monies throughout the Middle East and Africa. Guess what? China's taking our dollars that they earn from us. They're investing them over there in minerals and natural resources and oil. So I would say that it would be a much better way. How about the old-fashioned capital way of being a productive nation and let people invest freely and cooperatively rather than assuming a mercantilistic attitude that we have to go over and invade countries to protect our oil? Makes no sense.